Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Helen Cole, and I am the founder of the Gene Collective. The Gene Collective is an initiative developed by a group of women who bring their own unique skills and experience to the collective. Our hope is to inspire and educate women to become more involved in politics. Our thanks to Deb Mathews for joining us today. Deb has been involved in the Liberal Party since 1975. That's a long time, Deb.
No kidding.
At that point, she helped run Premier David Peterson's campaign, and she also continued by co-chairing the Liberal Party's provincial campaigns in the elections of 1987 and 1995. Deb also served as the 10th Deputy Premier of Ontario and a member of the Legislative Assembly of Ontario from 2003 to 2018. Deb and I first met when we both attended an Equal Voice conference in Ottawa in March of, I think it was 2018. So Deb, I'm so thankful that you're joining us today, and welcome.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, as you can tell, we're really pleased. So we'll just get right into it, Deb. Often when we decide to run for office or throw our hat in the ring, as that common phrase is used, we have reasons for wanting to do that. And I remember that when I ran for office for the city of St. Thomas, I wanted to find a way to save Alma College. And that was my primary focus when I ran for council. However, I soon learned that I need to focus on the issues of the entire community. So I went on to enjoy 3 terms in office as an elected councillor. But enough about me. Deb, tell us, what was your why? Why did you decide to run for office?
Well, I'll tell you, Helen, as you said, I was involved behind the scenes for decades before I decided to actually run for office myself. In my case, in 2003, if you can remember, it was the Mike Harris, Ernie Eves time in government. I was absolutely determined to be a voice for another way forward. For me, I've always been focused on social justice issues. That's kind of my raison d'etre in politics. And I looked at what the Conservatives were doing, and I saw that everything they did served to widen the gap between the haves and the have-nots. And I thought it was really important to bring a voice to the notion that we actually need to narrow the gap and give everyone an opportunity to achieve their potential, to be their best self. So I chose to run in a riding that many people, if not all people, thought was unwinnable. The incumbent was very popular. She'd been there for a long time, and but I still wanted to bring that voice. So when I decided to run, I just wanted to really challenge the incumbent and the Conservative Party on the decisions they were making on many, many different issues.
And you obviously did very well because, as I mentioned, you rose to be the 10th Deputy Premier of Ontario. So congratulations on the work that you achieved.
Thank you, Helen. But I have to say, this leads a bit from your previous question. For me, it's really important to run because you want to achieve something, not because you want a title. When people say to me, I'm going to be Prime Minister, I say, great, but what are you going to do when you get to be Prime Minister? Because people fall into the trap of wanting the title or the position and forget that they're really there to get things done for people.
So well said. I agree. So Pat, Deb. I don't know where that came from, Deb.
Okay.
Deb, what has been the biggest challenge for you as a woman in politics? Do you think other women will face similar challenges if you had any?
Oh, sure. I think women face real challenges, uh, not least of which is our lack of confidence. And so I never felt that the electorate was hesitant to vote for me because I was a woman. I don't think the electorate cares, with the possible exception of at the very highest level. When I see what happened to Kathleen Wynne, when I see what happened to Hillary Clinton, I think if women reach too high, they might get smacked down. But otherwise, in running to be an MPP, I never felt being a woman was a deterrent to that. What I did feel though, and I had to learn how to navigate this, is that women often are not taken as seriously as men are. And I remember when I was appointed health minister, there was an article in the Globe and Mail that questioned whether I was too nice to be health minister. And I thought, you know what do you get write that about a guy? I'm not sure. So somehow being nice and being effective weren't permitted to be embodied in the same person. But it does, as I say, it goes back to confidence. I talk to a lot of women about running for office, and the questions I get from women are completely different than the questions I get from men.
Mhm.
The women just need reassurance that they can do it, that they're good enough, that they don't have to have all the answers to all the questions, just like the men don't have all the answers to all the questions.
You're
So,
right.
yes,
You're
so as women, we need to support other women who are running for office.
Oh, yes.
Yes, and that is, I'm not saying you always have to vote for a woman if she doesn't reflect your values, but I think that when we find women who do reflect our values, we need to get behind them in every possible way. Moral support, financial support, knocking on doors, making phone calls support. Any way we can support them, we need to be there for women because it is hard.
You're talking my language, Deb. You've looked at our stuff. I mean, that's what that's what we are all about, is supporting and encouraging women.
Yeah.
So obviously, you're very supportive of encouraging women to get involved in politics in whatever way that might be, although our focus right now is local government because the municipal election is in 2022. Can you tell me, what do women bring to the table, and how do you think the environment might change if we have more women involved?
There is absolutely no question that women bring a different voice, a different perspective, a different sense of priorities to the decision-making table than men do. It's just, I'll give you one little example.
Mhm.
In 2003, new government was elected. I surprised everyone and won my seat. And there were a number of women who were elected at the same time as liberals for the very same reason that I was, that we really had a strong social justice imperative. We didn't run on poverty reduction. That was not in our platform at all. But Women's Caucus got together very early in the mandate, and we decided that this was an issue that we needed to address. And we worked very, very hard. We did our homework. We created a plan. We presented that plan to the whole caucus. And out of that came our poverty reduction strategy. I was named minister responsible for poverty reduction. If women had not raised that issue, it would not have been addressed in the same way. So that's just one of many examples where the voice of women is very different than the voice of men. Just like any other, right? So, you know, I was lucky enough to serve in a caucus with some very strong women from rural Ontario. And they brought the voice of rural women to the table. Not exclusively. They were brought all the issues to the table, to the room, but they had an additional enriched focus on women, rural women, and where they were not getting the attention they deserved.
You've illustrated so very well why we need more women in politics at every level, actually. So, based upon what you've just told me, how do you think we can bring more women in? How can we encourage more women to get involved?
So we have to ask, and then we have to ask, and then we have to ask, and then we have to ask, because women are, for understandable reasons, reluctant to make a decision. It is enormously disruptive to your family, to your life, to everything. It's enormously disruptive to run for office, let alone if you get elected to actually be in that position. So I think it's hard for women to see themselves in that role, and it's hard for women to make that decision that affects everybody around them. So what we really need to do is ask women and help them get to the decision where they're ready to run.
Okay, I hope the Gene Collective is doing that. We
Yes.
have 30 people registered for our first session where we're talking about understanding local government. So that's very exciting for us. And
Yeah.
that's on January the 20th.
Fantastic.
Yes, it is. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. So let's move on to another area that I've heard some concerns about. How do you think social media has changed politics? How should we get over the hurdle, and how do we deal with anonymous keyboard warriors on social media? Pretty big, broad question, but maybe you can give us a few points.
So I have more than my share of experience with this. And my greatest day on social media was when I discovered the mute button. Because there are some people, they don't identify themselves, they're rude, they're abusive, they're do all sorts of nasty things. But with a simple punch of that button, they are gone forever. And the best thing is they don't even know they're gone. So they can continue to, unlike a block, right? If you block someone, they know they've been blocked. If you mute them, you just don't have to listen to them anymore. So I think social media can be a fantastic addition to democracy, but it can also really take a toll. And before I discovered the mute button, I had some really tough times with that sort of deluge that you get, that unfiltered deluge that you can get from social media. But we have to remember we control it. Somebody once said to me, Twitter is like going for a walk down the street. You see people and you maybe say hello. Sometimes you might stop and have a deeper conversation. But the difference between Twitter and walking down the street is you get to decide who's on the street. So you only need to include people you want in your Twitter feed or your social media feed. And that's got danger too, because you tend to get inside your bubble. But hey, I found it helpful to just feel like I owned social media. They didn't own me.
So that's an interesting comment you've made. And I want to address some of what you said, because there is a bit of controversy in our community about current politicians who silence, unfriend, block people on their page. So, and the controversy has been that as an elected official, do they have that right to cut certain people off? I'm not sure that's what you were saying. I think I might be wrong though, that you were just saying that you're not seeing their comments, but you haven't deleted them, etc.
No, I don't. I tend not to block, but I do understand the issue, and I knew the standards I expected people to hold to, and if they wanted to write me a letter, of course I would get that letter. I can't stop mail from being delivered to my house, but if people swear, if they're abusive, if they're just rude, if they're so I had pretty high standards. block people or mute people because I didn't like what they were saying.
Good.
But I did if they were unacceptably rude. Just like you wouldn't give somebody an appointment to come in and see you in your office if you knew they were just going to yell at you.
Sure. Sure.
Right? So
So the
I
other
do
thing that
understand that debate. I do understand that debate.
The other thing that comes to mind based upon your comment, and I don't want to take too much time because I know you don't have you are in a time constraint. But when I chatted with Pat Davidson, one of the things that came out of that conversation was how important it was to not take things personally when we're talking about social media. And it seemed to me that that was really good advice, although difficult for any person who's deciding that they might want a career in politics. So
yeah, she's right. You have to try. It's not easy.
It's not easy.
And, I think it's kind of effective when people read the mean tweets and they expose the mean tweeters for what they are. So I think there's a balance there. But in politics general, you look at question period, there's a lot of insults that fly across the aisle there, and you can't take it personally. You have to understand they are attacking the job, not the person.
Oh, you are so right about that. I hadn't even taken it to the extent of question period, but of course, that's a really good example. So, Deb, what would be your one piece of advice for women who are possibly interested in running for office? What's the one thing that you think is most important?
I think it's very important that when people run for office, they think long and hard about why it is they want to run. And they are able to then articulate that. So, and it's got to be more specific than I want to make the world a better place, right? You've got to know what's driving you, because politics is hard. And you need to get up in the morning and know why you're there, know what your job is, to yourself and to your constituents. So I would say spend time thinking about why it is you're running, what you want to accomplish, and then find a way to get really comfortable with articulating that.
Deb, you could not have given me a better lead in to session 3. Session 3 takes place on March 24th, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about.
Fantastic.
What is your why? How to identify your purpose, cause, and platform, and build your support system. So thank you for that.
Great.
That is really terrific. So one of the reasons I started this group was because I had a great mentor in a woman named Jean McDougall. She always wanted to see more women involved in politics. And so we became friends when I was first elected in St. Thomas. I think it was 1991. That's a long time ago. She actually became more like my mother than a mentor. But she was a person who really encouraged me and was my sounding board. And I've named the initiative after Jean. So was there a woman who mentored you? And can you tell us more about that?
Sure. So am I allowed 3?
Of course.
Okay, thank you. So the first is my mom. But the first
wonderful.
My mom, I mean, she taught me, she had an unwavering social justice compass. She knew what was right and what wasn't right. So my late mom would be number 1. The other 2 are Joan Smith, who was
I remember her.
She was Solicitor General. She was on London City Council. A wonderful, wonderful woman. Again, with that unwavering compass that I knew, and because she knew politics, right? I could call her and say, help me with this. I'm getting attacked on whatever, help me understand. And the third one is my very dear friend Janet Stewart, who is a lawyer in London. She's never run for office, but she's been a giant supporter of women in politics, including me. And she just, there is no bullshit to Janet Stewart. She just tells you like it is. And I always appreciated sharing a martini and getting her advice, and continue to do to this day.
Let's not be talking about martinis. I'm doing a dry January.
Oh, good for you. I'm not.
So Deb, if you were sitting across from your younger self,
Yes.
and we're just beginning your career in politics, what advice would you give to her?
So I would say, be true to yourself.
Perfect.
Do what's right. And the politics, be damned. Like, if you start doing things because they're good politics, they're probably going to turn out to be bad politics. Just do the things that forward what you think is important to make society better. So that would be one piece, and never lose that. Never lose that. The second piece I would give is time is your most valuable asset. And we tend not to be as strategic with our time. I tended to be not as strategic with my time as I wish I had been. So I tended to be more reactive. I'd go to places because I was invited. I'd take meetings because they asked for it, rather than me being really deliberate and being proactive with how I spent my time. In politics, a lot of your time is already spoken for, meetings and whatever, but you do have some very precious time where you get to decide where you're going to spend that time. And I think it's good advice to think about, where do you want to spend that time, not who wants to spend time with you.
So just in a little bit of a different direction, because we are in challenging times. And so I wondered if you have one amusing story that you could share from your career in politics, something that makes you laugh when you think about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, there were lots of laughs. What instantly came to mind when you asked me that question was just the camaraderie that some of my female colleagues and I had. And there were times where something would happen that we would just laugh, and it being able to share time and build close, enduring friendships with some of the people I served with has been fantastic.
Thanks for sharing that. When you look 10 years into the future, what would you like to see in terms of women in politics?
Well, that's easy. I think, and it's possible to do it in 10 years. We can do this in 10 years. We need to have our elected people, the legislatures, the councils, reflect the population. And that just means if 51% of us in the population, there should be 51% of us in the legislatures. And that goes not just on gender, right? That's also ethnocultural representation, age representation. I think that there aren't enough young people in decision-making positions, because they're the ones who are going to have to live with the consequences of the decisions for the longest time. So I think more diversity, but for sure, there's no reason 10 years from now we shouldn't be 50-50.
Well, that certainly is our goal, that we get there right across the board.
If not 60-40, or remember what Ruth Bader Ginsburg said when she was asked how many women should there be in the Supreme Court? And she said, all of them. She said, well, work for men for years, decades. So they had all the seats for a decade. So why shouldn't women just for a little while have them all?
So that brings me to my next question. which is there one woman who inspired you above all? And who would that be?
You know, there are so many. It's really tough to choose at this moment, though. I'm looking at Stacey Abrams, and you know, I've been watching the U.S. scene closely, as I'm sure a lot of us are. But she's a woman who made it her life's work to get representation in the in government, and she did it. So right now, my hat is off to Stacey Abrams.
Interesting. You know, I have watched her, and I'm pretty impressed with what she's done. Mine would be Jacinda Ardern.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That woman is amazing.
Absolutely.
I mean, not only in so many ways, the fact that she fought COVID and has at least until recently secured her country against the virus. But I mean, she even had a baby in office. Well, she continued to cope with so many things. So I really admire her.
I really admire her. She's not afraid to show her emotion, right? I think women are kind of trained not to show how they're feeling.
And that's an interesting comment, Deb, because we are told that if we show emotion, that we're being weak or too feminine, whereas we should all have the right to show emotion when not extreme, but be real. And you said that earlier, just be real with respect. Yeah. So do you have anything else that you would like to add to our conversation today?
Well, I can tell you that running for office and the 15 years that I spent in the Ontario legislature was an extraordinary honor. And I just encourage women to really think hard about running. It's an experience unlike anything else, but it is a marvelous, marvelous experience.
Thank you. And, you know, it's possible for women who may be interested to start at the local level and then progress up through provincial or federal. So it is a great place to start. And I thank you for choosing to interview with me today.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much. And to those that are watching today, I want to also thank you for joining us and to let you know that there is more information on our workshops, our program plan, and you can access that at www.thegenecollective.ca. Our entire year's program for 2021 is there, and we hope that we'll see you and that you'll be interested in learning more. It doesn't mean that you're making a decision, but you have this entire year to learn more and hopefully make the decision in 2022 to put your name in the ring for election. So in the words of Jacinda Ardern, who was the woman that I mentioned that I find inspiring. She said, "We can carve our own path, be our own kind of leader. We need to create a new generation of leadership. I believe we can do this together, and I encourage all of you to try." Thank you again for attending today. And Deb, thank you so much for being with us. It was wonderful to talk with you. I really enjoyed it.
It was really fun. Thank you.